I always thought Linda and I were solid. Rock solid, actually. The kind of couple that made other people believe in love again. We'd been engaged for 3 months, and every single day felt like we were building something real, something permanent. We spent our weekends touring wedding venues, arguing good-naturedly about whether chocolate ganache or buttercream was superior for our wedding cake, debating color schemes until we were both laughing at how ridiculous we sounded. Linda wanted sage green and dusty rose. I was leaning towards something more classic, maybe navy and gold. We'd compromised on a coastal theme that would make everyone happy. My mom adored Linda. My friends thought I'd hit the jackpot. Even my skeptical older sister, Rachel, who never approved of anyone I dated, had pulled me aside at Thanksgiving and said, "Don't mess this one up, Oscar. She's special." That's why her words hit me like a freight truck later, completely blindsiding me when I least expected it. We were never official, so it's not cheating. I replay that moment constantly, even now months later. Those 8 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about us, about her, about reality itself. It all started on a Tuesday night in late September. Nothing about the evening seemed particularly notable or ominous. We'd ordered Thai food, her usual pad CEW, my drunken noodles extra spicy, and settled onto the couch to watch some forgettable romantic comedy Linda had been wanting to see. She was curled up against me, her head resting on my shoulder, and I remember thinking how perfectly she fit there, like we were 2 puzzle pieces designed specifically for each other. Her phone was on the coffee table, face up, and it started buzzing around 9 o'clock. Once, twice, then again, and again. At first, I ignored it completely. Linda was a social person. Her phone always had something going on. Group chats with her girlfriends, her mom sending recipes she'd never make, work emails that couldn't wait until morning. It was just Linda being Linda, and I'd never been the jealous type. I trusted her completely, which in hindsight feels almost laughably naive. "Babe, your phone," I said during a lull in the movie, nodding toward the persistent buzzing. "I'll check it later," she replied, not even glancing at it. "I'm comfortable right here." I smiled and kissed the top of her head. That's the Linda I knew, the one who prioritized us, who made me feel like I was her whole world. But the buzzing continued. It became impossible to ignore, like a mosquito you can't quite locate in a dark room. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Each notification felt more insistent than the last. Around 9:30, Linda excused herself to take a shower. She'd been at the gym earlier and complained about feeling gross, though I'd assured her she looked beautiful as always. I watched her walk down the hallway to the bathroom, her hair swaying with each step, and heard the water start running a moment later. The apartment fell quiet except for the TV and the distant sound of the shower. I tried to focus on the movie, but my attention kept drifting to her phone, which continued lighting up with new messages. The rational part of my brain said it was probably nothing. Maybe a group chat had gotten particularly active, or perhaps there was some drama at her office that needed immediate attention. But my gut, that primal instinct we all have but rarely listen to, told me something was profoundly wrong. I lasted maybe 10 minutes before curiosity, or was it dread, got the better of me. I reached for her phone, my hand trembling slightly. The screen was filled with notifications, and they were all from the same person. Ethan. Not a coworker I'd heard her mention. Not a cousin or family friend from the wedding planning. Not even a name that sounded vaguely familiar from any conversation we'd ever had. Just Ethan. My mouth went dry. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the dialogue from the movie. Something about the name, about the sheer volume of messages, made my stomach twist into knots. I shouldn't have looked. I absolutely know that. Privacy is sacred, trust is everything, and I'd always prided myself on respecting boundaries. We'd never been the kind of couple who checked each other's phones or demanded passwords. We didn't need to, or so I thought. But in that moment, with the shower still running and my hands already holding her phone, I couldn't stop myself. I swiped up, and of course there was no passcode. She'd disabled it months ago, saying she trusted me completely and had nothing to hide. Another detail that would soon feel like a cruel joke. When I opened the message thread, the entire world seemed to tilt on its axis. My heart didn't just drop, it plummeted through the floor, through the foundation, straight down into some dark abyss I didn't know existed. I felt like I couldn't breathe, like someone had wrapped their hands around my throat and squeezed. There they were. Pictures of Linda in lingerie I'd never seen before. A black lace set that must have cost a fortune, the kind of thing you don't just buy for yourself. Another photo showed her in red silk, posed on what I recognized as our bed. Our bed, with the afternoon light streaming through the window I'd helped her pick out curtains for. The poses were artistic, seductive, confident. She looked incredible, but that wasn't what destroyed me. It was that these were poses she'd never once done for me. In our entire relationship, Linda had been somewhat shy about that kind of thing. She'd get embarrassed if I suggested taking pictures, would laugh nervously, and change the subject. I'd never pushed because I respected her comfort level. But apparently, she had no such hesitations with Ethan. The captions made everything infinitely worse. "Does this drive you crazy?" one read. "Wish you were here right now," said another, accompanied by a winking emoji that felt like a knife twisting in my chest. "Can't stop thinking about last weekend." Last weekend. We'd gone to her sister's baby shower last weekend. She'd been on her phone a lot, I remembered now, details crystallizing with horrible clarity. I'd thought she was texting her mom or coordinating with bridesmaids for our wedding. How incredibly stupid I'd been. His replies were exactly what you'd expect, and somehow still shocking to read. They weren't strangers exchanging awkward flirtations. They were comfortable with each other. Intimate. Familiar. Too comfortable, too intimate, too familiar. I scrolled up, my hands shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The messages went back months. Not just weeks, months. Before the engagement. During the engagement. There were references to hotels I didn't recognize, inside jokes I wasn't part of, plans made for times when Linda had told me she was working late or having girls' nights. My entire reality was crumbling, piece by piece, message by message. I found photos he'd sent too. Shirtless mirror selfies with captions like "thinking of you." Pictures of fancy restaurant meals with "you'd love this place." Even a photo of him holding up 2 wine glasses with the message, "saving one for you tomorrow night." Tomorrow night. Tomorrow was Wednesday. Linda had told me just this morning that she had a work dinner tomorrow that would probably run late. "Don't wait up," she'd said, kissing my cheek as she left for the office. I felt physically ill. My stomach churned, and for a moment I genuinely thought I might throw up right there on our couch. Our couch, where we'd spent countless evenings. Where I'd proposed to her, getting down on one knee while her favorite song played in the background. Where we'd fallen asleep in each other's arms more times than I could count. All of it was a lie. Every moment, every promise, every plan we'd made together, contaminated by this secret relationship she'd been maintaining behind my back. The shower shut off. I heard the bathroom door open, heard her humming something cheerful and carefree. My brain went into some kind of autopilot mode. I couldn't process what I was feeling. It was too big, too overwhelming, too catastrophic. When Linda walked into the living room, wrapped in a towel with her wet hair dripping onto her shoulders, she was smiling. Actually smiling, like she didn't have a care in the world. Like she wasn't systematically destroying someone who loved her more than anything. I didn't yell. I didn't cry, though God knows I wanted to. I didn't throw her phone across the room or storm out dramatically. Instead, I did something that surprised even me. I stayed completely calm. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe some part of me still didn't believe what I'd seen was real. I simply held up her phone, the screen still showing those pictures, and asked in a voice that sounded eerily steady, "Who's Ethan?" The change in her expression would have been comical if it weren't so devastating. Her smile vanished instantly. The color literally drained from her face, leaving her pale and ghost-like. Her eyes went wide, and she grabbed for the towel like it might somehow protect her from what was coming. She froze completely, a deer in headlights, unable to form words. I watched her mind racing, trying to calculate, trying to find an explanation that would make this okay. Watched her realize there wasn't one. "Oscar, she started, then stopped. "Who is Ethan?" I repeated, enunciating each word carefully. She swallowed hard, opened her mouth, closed it, tried again, and then she said the sentence I will never, ever forget for as long as I live. "Oscar, we were never official, so it's not cheating." Tam stopped. I actually wondered if I'd heard her correctly. The words were so absurd, so disconnected from reality, that my brain refused to process them initially. "Not official?" I asked slowly, my voice barely above a whisper. I held up my left hand, where my engagement ring caught the light from the lamp beside us. Then I pointed to her left hand, where her significantly larger diamond ring glinted on her finger. The ring I'd saved for 8 months to buy. The ring she'd cried happy tears over. The ring she'd posted about on social media with the caption, "Luckiest girl in the world." "We're planning a wedding, Linda. I said, still in that strange, calm voice that didn't sound like me at all. We sent out save the dates last week. Your dress fitting is next Tuesday. We put a deposit on the venue. We have a seating chart in progress on your laptop. We've been telling people the date for months. She started rambling then, words tumbling out in a panicked rush. How things had moved too fast between us. How she'd gotten swept up in everything. How she wasn't sure if she was ready for marriage. How she didn't want to hurt me, but she needed to figure out what she really wanted. How Ethan was just someone she'd been talking to, someone who helped her process her feelings. Process your feelings? I interrupted, my calm finally cracking. You sent him lingerie pictures on our bed, Linda. On the bed where I sleep next to you every night. The bed where I couldn't even finish the sentence. It's not what you think, she said desperately, and I actually laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound I didn't recognize. Not what I think. I think you've been lying to me for months. I think you've been sleeping with someone else while planning our wedding. I think you just told me that our engagement somehow doesn't count as being official. What part am I getting wrong? She reached for me, but I stepped back, holding up my hand. Don't. Just don't. Oscar, please let me explain. Explain what? I demanded, my voice rising now. Explain how you looked me in the eye every single day while betraying me. Explain how you let me introduce you as my fiancée to everyone we know while you were sending half-naked pictures to another man. Explain how you let my family welcome you into our lives while you were. I couldn't continue. The anger was choking me, mixing with hurt and humiliation, and a grief so profound it felt like someone had died. In a way, someone had, the Linda I thought I knew, the relationship I believed we had. She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no desire to comfort her, nothing but a vast emptiness where my love for her used to be. How long? I asked quietly. Oscar, how long, Linda? She looked at the floor. For months. For months. We'd been engaged for 3. She'd been seeing him before I even proposed. I'd been planning our future while she'd been hedging her bets, keeping her options open, treating our relationship like it was somehow less real than I did. Did you sleep with him? I asked, though I already knew the answer. She nodded, barely a movement, still not meeting my eyes. I nodded too, like she'd just confirmed the weather forecast. Okay, I said. Okay. I walked to our bedroom, my bedroom now, I suppose, and pulled my duffel bag out of the closet. Linda followed, still crying, still trying to explain in fragmented sentences that made no sense. I ignored her and started packing. Clothes. Toiletries. My laptop. The framed photo of my parents I kept on the nightstand. Where are you going? She asked, her voice small and broken. Does it matter? I replied without looking at her. We were never official, right? So I'm not really leaving. Can't leave something that didn't exist. Oscar, don't be like this. We can talk about this. We can work through it. I turned to face her, and whatever she saw in my expression made her stop mid-sentence. Work through it. I repeated. Linda, you didn't make a mistake. You didn't slip up one time in a moment of weakness. You maintained an entire separate relationship for months. You took pictures on our bed. You made plans to see him while I was sitting at home thinking about our future together. You looked at the engagement ring I gave you and decided it wasn't enough to keep you faithful. There's nothing to work through. It's over. But I love you, she sobbed. Those words, which would have meant everything just an hour ago, now meant nothing at all. No, you don't, I said simply. You love the idea of me. The stability. The wedding everyone's excited about. But you don't actually love me. If you did, Ethan wouldn't exist. I finished packing in silence. She stood there watching, crying, occasionally trying to speak, but seeming to realize there was nothing left to say. When my bag was full, I walked to the kitchen and pulled the engagement ring off my finger. It had been there for 3 months, warm against my skin, a symbol of promises we'd made to each other. I placed it carefully on the kitchen table, right in the center, where she couldn't possibly miss it. Then I pulled out a piece of paper from the junk drawer and wrote a single sentence. If we were never official, then this isn't a breakup. I left it next to the ring, picked up my bag, and walked to the front door. Linda had followed me, was standing in the hallway with tears streaming down her face. Oscar, please, she whispered one last time. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt absolutely nothing. The love was gone, snuffed out like a candle. In its place was just emptiness. And maybe that was worse than anger, worse than hurt. At least those were feelings. This was just void. Goodbye, Linda, I said and walked out. I never looked back. Not metaphorically and not literally. I didn't let myself check over my shoulder as I walked down the hallway of our apartment building. Didn't let myself remember all the times I'd walked that same path feeling happy and in love. Didn't let myself think about the life we'd planned that would never happen now. I got in my car, drove to my best friend Marcus's apartment, and broke down completely. He opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside without asking questions. I ended up sleeping on his couch for 2 weeks while I figured out my next move. The following days were a blur of logistics and pain. Canceling the venue. Thankfully, we got most of our deposit back due to the timeline. Calling family members and explaining what happened, which was almost as humiliating as the actual betrayal. Returning gifts people had already sent. Dealing with Linda's attempts to contact me, which I ignored completely. My mom cried when I told her. Rachel, surprisingly, drove 3 hours just to give me a hug and help me apartment hunt. My dad offered to have a conversation with Linda, which I appreciated but declined. But the best part? The detail that eventually made me feel like maybe there was some cosmic justice in the universe. 6 weeks later, I was scrolling through social media when Marcus showed me a post from Ethan's public profile. I'd looked him up once, just to put a face to the name, and apparently Marcus had kept tabs on him out of some protective instinct. The post was a long, bitter rant about a girl who used him and disappeared. About how he'd thought they had something special, how she'd led him on, made promises she never intended to keep. How she'd suddenly ghosted him completely and blocked him on everything. The comments were full of his friends offering sympathy and calling the mysterious girl various unflattering names. Turns out Linda had lied to him too. Extensively. She'd apparently told Ethan that we were broken up, that I was just a roommate she was stuck in a lease with until she could move out, that the ring she wore was from a previous relationship she was trying to end, that she was planning to be with him once she sorted out her living situation. When the truth came out, and I have no idea how Ethan found out, whether she confessed or he discovered it some other way, he'd felt just as betrayed as I did. In his mind, he was the real boyfriend, and I was the obstacle. Learning that Linda had been playing us both, lying to everyone, maintaining this complex web of deception with neither of us aware of the other's true role. It had destroyed whatever he felt for her. Linda learned the hard way that you can pretend a relationship doesn't exist, that you can rationalize and justify and minimize your actions all you want. But the truth always shows up eventually. Just like those pictures did. Just like her lies to Ethan eventually surfaced. Just like the real person she was, not the person she pretended to be, but who she actually was when her character was tested, finally revealed itself. I won't lie and say I'm completely over it now. Even months later, there are moments when something reminds me of her, and I feel that familiar ache. I see a woman with similar hair, and my heart skips before I remember. I pass the restaurant where we had our first date, and have to look away. I still sleep on the left side of the bed, even though I live alone now, because breaking that habit feels like admitting she changed me permanently. But I'm healing. Slowly, painfully, but genuinely healing. I've started therapy, which helps more than I expected. I've reconnected with friends I'd neglected while wrapped up in wedding planning. I've thrown myself into work and actually gotten a promotion. I've gone on a few dates, nothing serious yet, but I'm not ruling anything out. And I've learned something valuable, even if the lesson came at a terrible cost. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Linda showed me, with her words and actions, that she was capable of sustained deception, of compartmentalizing her life in ways I couldn't imagine, of prioritizing her own desires over anyone else's feelings. The woman who could say we were never official while wearing an engagement ring wasn't someone who made a mistake. She was someone revealing her character. And thank God, truly thank God, I found out before I actually married her. Before we had kids. Before I invested even more years in someone who saw our relationship as negotiable, as something she could redefine retroactively to suit her narrative. My mom said something that stuck with me during one of our long phone calls. "Oscar," she said gently, "sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. You didn't lose your future. You dodged a bullet. Somewhere out there is the person who will actually cherish you the way you deserve, who won't need to keep their options open, who won't redefine reality to excuse their behavior." I hope she's right. For now, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life and rediscovering who I am outside of being Linda's fiancé. I'm learning to trust my instincts again, those instincts that told me something was wrong that Tuesday night, that gave me the courage to look at her phone despite my reservations, that knew immediately that we were never official was complete nonsense. And whenever I doubt myself, whenever I wonder if I overreacted or gave up too easily, I remember those pictures. I remember her complete lack of remorse until she got caught. I remember how easily she lied, how seamlessly she moved between her life with me and her life with Ethan. I remember that I deserve better. I know I deserve better. And someday I'll find it. But for now, I'm okay being alone, being single, being the guy who walked away from a cheater instead of the guy who married one. That version of my story, the one where I stayed and tried to make it work with someone who fundamentally disrespected me, that would have been the real tragedy. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.